Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. Welcome back to Geeks Reads. Today, I'd like to talk about Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson, an image of which you will see here. Um, I know the book has been renamed because it's now the Mistborn trilogy. The first book has since been renamed. I don't remember what it's called, and I don't care because the first book should be called Mistborn. Screw that. We are reading this book for book club, and normally I wait for us to finish the book, but I've already read the book in the past anyway, so I know the story and how it ends. It doesn't matter. There will be some mild spoilers. Nothing too severe. The Mistborn first book, Mistborn, in the series. The book is what is it? Once a hero arose to save the world, a young man with a mysterious heritage courageously challenging the darkness that strangled the land. He failed. The hero of ages was supposed to save the world, and he failed. What we have in place is the Lord Ruler. The world is covered in ash. Mountains constantly spew ash into the air, which covers the ground and has to be cleaned up. The story opens on a plantation, peopled with slaves. There's a meeting going on between the slaveholder and a man who is obviously from the government. He has some authority. And it switches later to a viewpoint from the slaves. A man named Kelsier is a guest, is a wandering escaped slave who they are reluctantly hiding. After the incident with Kelsier, we switch to a young woman named Vin. Vin is a member of a thieving crew in the main capital of Luthadel. She is beaten down, downtrodden. She does her best to stay unnoticed and to not look very feminine. Not a safe thing to do in the streets in a thieving crew is to look feminine. She is distrustful, having been told by her brother Reed before he abandoned her not to trust anyone, that everyone will betray you, which he proved by leaving her. But she is considered important to the crew leader's goals. She has something which she calls luck. She can somehow use whatever ability that she has to kind of push people into doing what she wants them to do to try and change the situation. She just calls it her luck, which she later learns is allomancy. The magic system of this world is known as allomancy. People can burn metal in their bodies to have certain effects, to be stronger, to change people's emotions, to push and pull on metals like magnet, Vin uses this ability unconsciously, not knowing what it is, without training. Kelsier is a Mistborn, someone who can use all the metals. Most people can only use one or two, well, mostly only one. If you can either use one metal or all of them. That is one of the magic systems of this world that is unique to the Mistborn series. Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere, all his various books are connected in some way, shape, or form. They're all different worlds and with slightly different magic systems that have certain similarities. They are all... The magic in Brandon Sanderson's various worlds is more like imbuement, enhancing your body or imbuing power in objects of the world or in some way the world around you. It's very physical and tactile for the most part. There's no lightning bolts and fireballs, no real warping of reality, just a slight change in how you do things, and taking power in and using it to enhance yourself or to enhance the world, or to affect the world around you in some way. And in Mistborn, it's by using metals. There are 3 different magic systems used in the Mistborn series. One of them is allomancy. Another one is feruchemy, which is used by the keepers. Vin does meet a keeper at some point. His name is Sazed. Keepers use magic to store things, either memories. They can store speed to make themselves move, and then retrieve it later to like move faster. They can store strength to make themselves stronger later. They can store healing to help themselves heal faster. Caesar wears a series of bracelets up and down his arms in which he stores various things: health, strength, speed, power, memories, to be used later. I've kind of gone off track. Talking about Sanderson's world building as opposed to the story itself. Vin and Kelsier do meet through Vin's crew leader's schemes. He tries to betray someone else and things go horribly wrong because Vin's use of allomancy is noticed. That's a spoiler there. And they wind up meeting, and Kelsier offers to train her. Kelsier is somewhat of a hero because he survived something that he shouldn't have survived, and in doing so, sort of became a Mistborn. And he wants to overthrow the Lord Ruler and overthrow, the Scott are all slaves. They're all property. The Lord Ruler is cruel and heartless and doesn't really care what people do as long as, whatever rules he set in place are followed. And he is by far one of the most powerful people in the world, if not the most powerful person in the world. It's never directly said during the early parts of the book what he does or how he does it, but he's considered a sliver of infinity. He has massive amounts of power, stronger than any other Allomancer. And Kelsier wants to overthrow him. And he recruits a group to do this. His reasons are his own. We occasionally see things from his viewpoint, but it's mostly from Vin's viewpoint. And I really, really like her character arc. She starts off as this timid, beaten down person, and she winds up joining this crew of people who she thinks she might be able to trust for the first time in her life. I'm not sure exactly how old she is, but I'm guessing she's around 16 or so when the story starts. Maybe she's between 16 and 20, but I'm pushing to 16 or 17. She is very smart, but also very downtrodden and browbeaten and cautious and withdrawn and untrustful. For good reason. Her whole life has been nothing but misery. And by joining Kelsier's crew, which is so different from anything she's ever known, these are people who have worked together for years and who trust each other, and that is something outside of her experience. And there's a particular chapter that the book club went over recently where you really start to see who she will become going forward, who she might be, who she could have been had circumstances been different. There's an interaction between her and a young man who she meets. She's infiltrated a nobility's ball. The nobility throw fancy parties all the time. She is infiltrated one disguised as, the minor niece of some distant nobleman, and bumps into this young man and just kind of banters back and forth. She's annoyed by him. She's not impressed with him or attracted to him. She just finds him annoying, and she kind of, for the first time, isn't pretending to be someone else. She's being herself with him for the first time, and she doesn't even realize she's doing it. And it is probably one of my favorite chapters in the entire trilogy. Is just this first moment of her becoming someone else. I think it is so well written. And the story goes on from there. She continues to infiltrate parties, continues to bump into this young man. The rebellion goes forward, such as it may. There's all kinds of little ups and downs, ebbs and flows of the story. I've gone over some of the world building a bit as well already. Um, the Mistborn series, um, Sanderson, so far as I know, for the Cosmere, has Stormlight Archive, which I've covered in The Way of Kings, the first book in that series, Mistborn, White Sands, Elantris, and Warbreaker. Yeah, Warbreaker. Check out my bookshelf. Those are all part of the Cosmere. They are all separate worlds. I know he's got other stuff he's written during COVID. I haven't read any of his newer stuff. I haven't read any of the stuff he's written. I'm not caught up in the Stormlight Archive. I'm not stopped on the last book of the second series in Mistborn. But of all the books he's written, excuse me, only the Stormlight Archive and Mistborn have multiple books in them, really, that I'm aware of. Like I said, I haven't read any of the few books that he's released in the last couple of years. I'm behind on my reading. And because of that, I think Mistborn, so far, Mistborn and the Stormlight Archive are the two worlds that are the most different as well. You know, the others, they're fantasy worlds. They have magic. They have, you know, different systems and things like that. But they're, as far as the worlds go, they function basically the same way that we would expect the world to work. The sun goes up and down. You know, the plants that grow are ones we recognize. The animals are, you know, we recognize the horses and the cows and the chickens and the, you know, for the most part. The other stuff, recognize all the people. Mistborn is different. This is a world that is ruined. And I am getting sun in my eyes, and it's really annoying me. Sorry about that. And because of that, I think his best written and longest running series are the hardest to get into because they are so different. And one of, I think, Sanderson's strengths in these books is that he doesn't tell you everything right off the bat. And I think I might have also said this with The Way of Kings. He doesn't explain why the world is the way it is. He doesn't go into huge detail. He just explains, you know, he explains things organically. There's no massive plot exposition dump that just gives you everything. You learn things naturally in the way that the world functions when people mention them. You know, someone mentions, oh, the ash mounts must be doing heavy today. There's lots of ash on the ground. It's like, wait, ash mounts? Ash? What the hell's going on? Why is ash falling from the sky like snow? There's no green plants. What do you mean there's no green plants? You know, plants are all brown and yellow and white. Probably because of all the ash. Screwing up the photosynthesis. You know, so these little details just kind of slowly tease their way out. And I really love it. But it also makes these two series hardest to get into. You know, when you're thrown into something that doesn't make a lot of sense and it's not explained quickly, I know people get frustrated. I have a friend whom I've tried to introduce these books to, and he just like, nope, he's sick of them, won't even bother. Which I think is a shame because he's as much of an avid reader as I am, and you know, as much of a lover of fantasy as I am. But what are you gonna do? As far as the Mistborn trilogy goes, the whole series, there's two series. So far, I'm only talking about this one. There's a second trilogy which takes place in the future, like 300 years after the end of this trilogy. But of the Mistborn series itself, of which I think there are 7 books now, this is one of my favorites. It's my favorite of the first trilogy. And yeah, even the second trilogy, which I think as a group I like more, this is still a really, really good book, and it is one of my favorites of the Mistborn series. I would probably give it an A, not quite an A+, but it's close. This is a damn good book. It's not perfect. I think the pacing falls off in a few spots, but other than that, it's a really, really good book. It's a solid fantasy book. And Sanderson is really good at world building. He really is. The man writes like a maniac. Can't believe how many books he's written in the last 3 or 4 years. Anywho, that's Mistborn. I love it. I highly recommend it. I'm reading it for the third time, I think, for book club. Well, I read it twice before. Third time again for the book club. And yeah, that's my recommendation. I like it. As always, thanks for watching. As always, my stuff is crap. And until next time, good hunting.